What's up, my brothers and sisters? Welcome to the Fireground Fitness Podcast, where we talk about all things pertaining to life on and off the fireground. The views and the opinions expressed are those of your host and our guest. Today we sit down with Greg Morales. He's a fire captain with the city of Phoenix, and we talk about his work on the job. We talk about the Bomberos, and we talk about the fact that he used to be a garbage man, and so much more. Please enjoy. First of all, man, thank you for sitting down and doing this with me. I love chatting with you, and I love talking about stuff, and I want to talk about Bomberos and the stuff that you're working on with, you know, recruitment and the would-be firefighters in our neck of the woods. And so, you know, before we talk about that, though, let's talk a little bit about Greg Morales and GMO and what your journey's been like and how you got here.
All right. You know what? Born and raised here in Phoenix, you know, homegrown, grew up.
I feel like there's not so many locals anymore.
Oh, there's not, man. It's crazy. But, yeah, I was born here, Memorial Hospital. We grew up on the west side. I grew up right down the street from Station 24, right off of 41st Avenue there, and right in Maryville. And just grew up there. Just my brother still owns that house that we grew up in, you know. Recently moved my mom in with me, but, you know, still in the neighborhood a lot. Still got family. All my family's here, you know. So born and raised. Went to Carl Hayden High School. Okay. Graduated in 94. You know, 46 years old. Married. My wife Maria. I got 3 kids. My oldest is 21. Gregory Jr. He's a mailman with the post office.
Nice.
Doing good. My younger boy is Isaiah, 19. He's on the job. He's just in the academy right now.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
They're finishing up week 13. So, and then my daughter's 14. She goes to John Paul II, a Catholic high school out there in Goodyear. So, kids are getting big. I live out in Avondale. I moved out to Avondale.
Nice.
So, right off the 101 there, and so just west of Phoenix.
Nice.
So I'm just here, man. I'm born and raised. I'm a, you know, what do they call us? I'm a desert rat, you know, born and raised here.
What, do you guys travel? Do you guys get out and go? Do you guys travel a lot? Your wife and you guys? Do you guys get out?
We try to. You know what? I wish we did more of it, you know, but, you know, we work and kids, and my daughter plays club volleyball. So if we travel now, it's like with the club team, you know.
Yeah.
We just got back from Chicago over Easter weekend, so we never been
Wait,
to
what did you
Chicago.
say she plays?
Club volleyball.
Volleyball.
Yeah, she's a volleyball
nice.
player. Yeah, so.
She got your height?
She's getting a little tall. She's only 14, but she's getting tall, and she's good. She loves playing, so that keeps us busy, you know.
Yeah.
Keeps me working overtime so I could pay for this club team. And,
well, the reason I asked, I was curious if there's like, you know, you say you're desert rat. I'm wondering if there's any place you say to yourself like, yeah, if I wasn't here, this is my dream location. Where would you go?
Man, you know what? I'm still just local, man. If I was going to move anywhere, it'd probably just be up north. But and even that, I don't see myself leaving.
Like North
Phoenix.
Valley or like
no, like up north, like Flag.
Yeah.
Pine Top.
I'm just teasing.
But even that, I think I'd still want to be here and maybe spend some time up north, like maybe get in a cabin or something.
Yeah.
And I talk to her sometimes, and I'm like, I think I could do the downtown thing, you know, like maybe downsize and live
get
downtown.
In a little apartment.
Yeah, get in an apartment, ride our bikes around, and
hit
the little spots around downtown, and just.
So I got one of our folks one of our dispatchers lives right next to the stadium, and she's been there for about, I think she said 6 months, and she's like, oh, it's been really nice.
The D-back stadium?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's been really nice until the baseball season, and all of a sudden you hit a home run on it. She's like, I was laying down to go to bed, and all of a sudden freaking fireworks are going off like right next door, and I'm like, oh yeah. You got to live that party life downtown.
That's like buying a house next to the airport or Manzanita.
Right. Oh yeah.
The race cars you knew what you're getting into when you bought, you know.
Yeah. No, I used to love. So when I worked at 39s, you'd hear them in the evening. That was really cool. We went over there a couple times obviously for some wrecks. But just to watch them turn dirt a couple times, you go over there. It was great.
My nana Tata used to live right down the street.
Is that right?
We would sit in the backyard and eat pomegranates and listen to the cars go by and watch the planes go over.
Is that where you got your love for, where you became a motorhead?
I don't know. That's a good question. I love cars though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm into cars, so probably. But those cars are fast. I'm a lowrider.
You like slow cars, slow and low.
Low and slow.
Nice. I saw a video this morning. This guy's bumping his car, jumping it, and the freaking wheel fell off. As I thought of you.
Yeah. I'm more old school than that. I'm into bombs.
Yeah.
You know what they call bomb is.
Tell me what that is. I don't even know what that is.
So bomb is basically like pre-53 and older. 53 and older would consider a bomb. So like you're old. I have a 38 Chevy.
That's cool, man.
Like Al Capone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Doors open
Is it
up.
okay? So I don't know anything about classic cars. So you're gonna have to educate me a little bit. Is it a challenge to find parts when you're working on stuff? I would think it would be hard, but
you know what? It's not too much, man. I mean, there's a lot of parts out there. There's companies out there
fab and stuff
that repop, parts, and
okay.
you can find original parts still, but now the prices are going up, and for the old cars. And then I like anything old, man. If you got an old car and you take care of it and you show some pride in it, like I like it. I'm a Chevy guy, but I don't mind somebody that's got a nice Ford or a Buick. You
just appreciate the work, the artwork that goes into it. Yeah. It is true, man. I think about so I love the idea of a classic car. Mm-hmm. But then when it comes to and this is the reason this is a problem for me is because I've always been so damn broke as a joke, right? Like it's always it's my only car. And I'm like, okay, I want to do an engine swap, but I got to do it over the weekend.
Oh, I know what you're feeling. I feel you, man, because I've had this car, and I just barely got it on the road, and it's not even done. I don't got no paint. I still need interior, but, I drive it around here and there. We just had our little car show. Did you hear about that?
Yeah. How was it?
It was good. We had a good turnout, man.
Nice.
A lot of cars, a good mix of cars, some hot rods, lowriders, customs. The bug guys came out.
Nice.
The C10 truck guys came out.
Are they kind of like a special class of the bug guys? Like they don't get so much respect.
They're hippies, you know what I mean? But I like them. I like to hang out with them.
It's funny. So my the only time I ever really worked on cars was I had bugs, and that's why I make fun. I'm kind of laughing about that because I had a couple of bugs. That was my first engine rebuild. Was a 1970 Super Beetle. Oh. And pulled it out, benched the motor, redid the whole thing. It was awesome.
Nice.
And what I loved about it was, and this is on all seriousness, was when I was done with it and I put it back together, it wasn't like a super clean bug. It was just a stupid bug, right?
Yeah.
But I did that.
Yeah, you
I rebuilt that motor and it ran fantastic. And I was like, man, there's so much pride and ownership having done that. It was really cool.
We just bought my mom a 70 bug.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was on her bucket list.
Nice.
She's like, I always wanted a Volkswagen bug. I'm like, seriously? Like, all right. So I went out and found her one. Clean little bug out.
That's cool. They're so fun to drive.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. I drive it all the time. I'd probably drive it more than she does.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about getting one myself. Cause
you got the little bug.
The
bug. Oh, that's so stupid. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's great, man. I've thought about that too because I do enjoy. I enjoy wrenching on vehicles when it's not an emergency, right? Like, oh man, it broke down. I got to fix it by Monday or I can't get my butt to work.
Yeah.
And that's how I always was for a long time. That was kind of how I was living. And, so one of these days I'll probably get back into it when I
retire.
When I feel it. I ain't feeling it right now, but yeah, I got too many hobbies as it is right now.
That's what I want to do when I retire.
Just
mess with cars.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So, okay, so retire from what? So let's talk about how you got on the job and kind of, what you got into, how you got here.
Let's see. I got hired in 2006 and I tested for about 5 years.
Really?
So not right after high school, not too long after high school, after doing nothing, I got on with the city. And
doing what?
When I first got hired with the city, I got hired with the graffiti busters.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was a cool job. I had a real good supervisor, and he basically gave me a chance because I was kind of a knucklehead, growing up. And
aren't we all coming out of high school?
Yeah. Like I said, before high school, I wasn't doing anything, man. I was getting in trouble. I was doing nothing, and got a temp position with the city for the graffiti busters. Yeah. And that was perfect because I knew where all the graffiti was.
Yeah, local kid. That's what they do. It's hire the local boys.
I'd go into all the other neighborhoods and cover theirs up and leave my neighborhood alone.
What Well, it's okay. So you're coming out of high school. How did you find yourself? Like, how did you find that job?
I don't remember how I came about it, but I might have even been through a temp service, but it was like me and my cousin and a couple buddies and even my brother at one time. We were working through this temp agency, and I just liked it. It was fun. I was, working for the city. I felt, even though I was a temp, I felt like I was working for the city, and it's kind of crazy. I think back, where I grew up in Maryville. I grew up, I graduated in 94. So, the early 90s, it was rough. You know what I mean? It was a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs, and just not much going on. And there was a feeling out there in my neighborhood, and I'm sure a lot of my generation in that time in the west side and the south side, if you got on with the city, it was like you made it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of how I felt. And so I enjoyed going to work. I think I was doing a good job because at one point the supervisor pulled me in. His name was Louis Pete. He worked for the city for a long time. And he pulled me in and he goes, "You like it here?" I said, "Yeah, Mr. Pete, I like working here." And he goes, "I've been watching you." He goes, you do a good job and this and that. He goes, I'm gonna give you a chance if you want to stay working. He goes, "But I'm just letting you know, I'm letting all your buddies go." So they let all my friends go and my brother and everybody else because it was all temps.
Right.
And he kept me on, and that was kind of like my start. He gave me a shot,
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. And I worked with the graffiti busters for a few years, and then I ended up getting on part-time with human services.
Okay.
Yeah. Fire is actually my 6th department within the city
right?
that I work for. Yeah. I jumped around, and Mr. Pete gave me my chance as a temp with neighborhood services and the graffiti busters. Then I went to human services as a part-time guy.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. This is because I see, what did you learn from that? When you look back on that and you look back on what he said, because I feel like there's a sense of pride that you have with that relationship.
Yeah.
What did you take away from that?
You know what? It's just, there was a time in my life where I really didn't think I was going to do anything. Like I said, grew up kind of rough. I had an older brother. There was my cousins and just my neighborhood people there was gangs and, just trouble. And I was involved in a lot of that stuff, growing up, just trying to find myself,
Yeah.
And when you feel like your only options and at one point my options were, I'm either going to go to the military, and if I don't do something drastic like join the military, or I'm going to end up in prison or dead, because a lot of people around me were doing that,
Right.
And it was real. It was happening. I lost a lot of friends in that time to the streets, and a lot of people that I grew up with were ending up in prison and getting shot around me and stuff like that. And I was just, at one point, I was like, I can't do this no more. I took the ASVAB test for the Army because I was like, what am I going to do? I'm tired. I'm getting tired of this. You know what I mean? I was like 17, 18 years old, trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do. Everything around me was kind of going wrong. And I ended up with that part-time job. And when Mr. Pete gave me that chance, it was like, maybe I can do something, And like I said, I felt like if you got on with the city, you made it. And that was my chance. That was my out, to hopefully try to make something of myself. It was like guys from the neighborhood and stuff like that. Oh, you got on with the city? Like, keep that job. It was almost like
some security in that.
Some security, and it was my reason. It was my out to be like, I can't go hang out. Yeah. I got to go to work. I got a job with the city.
It's really impressive that you recognize that, because I think a lot of young folks don't necessarily appreciate when somebody mentors them like that and then says, "Hey, you could do this. See this path."
Yeah.
So that's amazing, and it's a great. I mean, it's. It obviously puts your wheels right on the rails, right, and sets you in the right direction. Yeah. So you said you got into some other sections of the city.
Yeah. So after that, like the city was it for me. I saw myself retiring as a city employee. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I got on part-time with human services, like a laborer for the senior centers. And then my mom had a good friend that she went to high school that was a foreman in the water department. And she talked to him, told her that I kind of got my foot in the door. And he said, hey, tell him to get on this list and I'll pull his name for an interview. So I did, and I ended up getting hired full-time with the water department.
Nice.
So I was in the hole, man. I was digging ditches, replacing broken water lines and hydrants, and it was hard work, you know what I mean? But I was working around heavy equipment. But with the water department, I got my CDL. You know, the city paid for me to get my CDL. So now I'm operating heavy equipment and driving a big truck, you know, and it was like full-time city employee. So I'm like, now I'm really like, I made it.
That's real work,
yeah,
bro.
it's real work, you know. And all at the same time, you know, I went to high school with my wife, and we were kind of high school sweethearts, and we kind of disconnected and then got back together. So I was on with the city. And
she's waiting for you to get that full-time job.
Yeah, man. She's like, I'm tired of paying for you. I wanted her to take me to the movies, and I had no money. But her dad was a city employee. You know what I mean? I had some other family that were city employees, and that was, you know, that was the thing if you were a city employee. So
yeah,
got on with water full-time, and we got back together, and, you know, and I think I got on with water in 98. You know, and we ended up getting married in 98.
Nice.
Yeah, so, you know, the city kind of solidified, you know, I needed to be a man. You know what I mean? I needed to walk away from all the stuff that I was doing. And, you know, I found somebody that, you know, supported me and helped me to, you know, kind of get my life on track. And, you know, we still do have a deep faith, you know what I mean? And her family was really, had that faith and something that I leaned on too. You know what I mean? I found a good person that supported me, and I found a job that I felt like this is where I was going to be and what I was going to do, you know? And so then from there, I just kind of kept working, and my goal was to promote, do a good job, work hard, you know what I mean? And promote to make more money. 'Cause, you know, I had my first kid in 2001. My son was born, and, you know, and, well, we actually lost our first son in 2000, but my next son was born in 2001. So I started a family, you know, and I was like,
yeah, things start getting real.
Yeah, it got real, man.
Real serious,
got,
right
you know,
then,
we bought a house, you know. We bought a house right before we got married, so we moved out to Glendale, and then ended up coming back to Avondale and had a house built. And life, man, you know.
In 2000?
In 01. Was it 2001?
I'll say we had our second kiddo in 2000, and we built a house in Avondale.
Oh, really?
We live out on the west side too. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was like, geez, we're in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of building going on in the early aughts.
Yeah. We lived out in Glendale, and then we decided to move back closer to the family. Her mom and dad moved out of the neighborhood because we were from the same neighborhood, and her mom and dad moved up by Garden Lakes area.
Oh, yeah.
In Avondale. So we're like, yeah, we look in that area. So we found a house out there. And
close to family and all that.
My first son came, and, you know, we just kind of set our roots out there. I'm still out there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So you're in the water department, you're digging ditches, driving big trucks. And what turned you, I mean, was there anything between that and the fire department?
Yeah. So I was working for the water department. One of my wife's good friends, her boyfriend at the time was working, just got on with sanitation. And so I met him, and we, you know, got close, you know, and they baptized one of my kids. So we're compadres, you know, and he got me into the sanitation. So I was driving a garbage truck. So from water department, I went to streets department, and I got a promotion to streets, and I was doing some compaction testing. And then from streets, I got on with garbage.
Okay.
And I was a G-man. I was driving a garbage truck, man. And that was like, within the city, it was like, oh, yeah, you're a garbage man? You know, that was like right underneath.
Yeah. That's
a big in my eyes, it was like right underneath.
Yeah.
You know, PD fire, you were up there, you know. But, and then so he started testing for the fire department. And then I had another couple of friends that I worked with the city that were starting to test and stuff. So that's where that kind of idea got dropped on me for the fire department. Because honestly, brother, it never even dawned on me. Right. I never considered the fire department. I grew up right across the street from Station 24, and I literally have no memory of the fire truck pulling out the station. I didn't pay it no mind. It wasn't on my radar. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was
just part of the fabric of the neighborhood, not another thing. Yeah.
The neighborhood was more. I was focused more on the neighborhood and my partners and my homies in the neighborhood, and hanging out. And I don't have any memory. You know how some people are like, I wanted to be a firefighter when I was little.
Oh, yeah. Every time the truck went by, woo.
And I was almost 30 years old before it even dawned on me that, that I could even become a firefighter.
Yeah. So you started, so you had somebody else who was testing, and they turned to you and like, you should be doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, they actually, invited me. Say, hey, we're going to go take a test for the fire department. I was like, for real? He's like, yeah.
That's a job?
Yeah. Like, we could do that?
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right. And so I went and applied and took the test and didn't go very well.
What was that like? What was that process like for you?
It's funny, man, because now, in my role with the Bomberos and just the years, that I've been doing this, I can look back and I say, man, you sound like an idiot going in that interview, that first interview. I had no clue.
So did you make it? So you took your first test? Did you get all the way to an interview?
Yeah. I took my first test and took the CPAT. Remember, the city at the time was doing the CPATs.
Oh, yeah.
It was part of the process, going down to the Civic Plaza in the basement. And, so I was, working with my buddies who were doing it. We were working out and figuring out what you had to do. And I was like, man. So I got through that. And, the first year I tested, I made it all the way to a first-round interview. And they were just like, man, we'll see you next year. I didn't have a clue. Didn't know, I wasn't involved in a mentorship with the Bomberos or anything at that time.
Yeah. Did you even know it was a thing? Probably not.
It was all kind of mixed in together. It was starting to, because, once you start to get that idea and you start making some relationships and you start hearing about cadets and you start hearing about, Bomberos, some of the affinity groups and things, PC. I went to EMT at Phoenix College and got that done. And then you start hearing about, avenues and stuff that you could take to start making you successful. So it was all around mixed in that same time, but the first time I tested, I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what I was doing. So went to my first interview and didn't make it past that. So, and I tested for 5 years. It took me 5 years to get on the job.
How many tests were in that period of time?
I think 4. I think about 4 tests. I think there was 1 year, it was like a 2-year list or something like that. So I made it to the interviews. First one, I went to a first round. The second time I tested, I made it to a second. And then I 3 more times.
Yeah. I think people need to hear that more often because you think, well, hey, I want to be a firefighter. I'm going to go get that job. And it's, while you hear people talk about, well, there's a shortage and we need firefighters and whatever, but it's still very competitive. And, as much as we need people and whatever.
Super competitive. Mm-hmm. I remember standing in line at the Civic Plaza, 5,000 people in that room. Yeah. Line wrapped around the building, And I'm like thinking to myself, what the hell?
How is this even possible?
Yeah.
Right.
How am I going to do this? Mm-hmm. And, looking back too, never thought I could even do this job. And then start getting this process and such a big process. When you see 5,000 people in this room, you're like, how the hell am I going to get hired?
How do I stand out?
Yeah.
Well, so let me ask you then, what changed from interview number 1 to your successful interview?
I got tied in with some really, really good people. That was the key. Because that's where I got in.
Because you know what people say. It's who you know. Right. Or you got to have somebody on the inside who pulls you through.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have anybody. I had no family on the job.
Right.
Like I said, fire department was not even a thought. But it wasn't until I really got introduced to some good people. And my first interaction with somebody with the fire department, my sister-in-law worked with a lady, and she was married to Ernie Sevilla's wife. Mm-hmm. And he worked at, remember Ernie, he worked at 22 for years. So somehow we got hooked up. He said, yeah, come see me at 22. So I went to knocking on the door at 22. And Ernie was old school. He was on the job forever, So what do? Just like we do probably now, send you to the rescue guys, the young guys. So I think I sat with Steve Maldonado, and he just kind of broke me down on the process and what you needed to do. And it was a good visit, but shortly after that, I think I went to one of my first Bombero meetings. Somebody said, hey, there's a group out there called Bomberos. They got a mentorship program. And they used to have their meetings downtown on the south side on Central and like Tamarisk at the South Mountain Community Center.
Mm-hmm.
Went to one of those meetings, and that room was packed, kind of intimidating, and then some of the leadership at that time were a little intimidating too, So I was like, man, I don't know about this, but there's like, this is the place to be, and it was good. And what I saw too, when I walked in there, that leadership, and I think this is really key and really important, is they look like me. You know what I mean? They were all Chicanos. They're all Mexicanos, the board for the Bomberos, and that was part of their message too, is, we're trying to help our people get on this job and show you what you need to do. So that resonated with me, is because I didn't know what to do. I didn't think that I could do this job, you know what I mean? And when you see people that are running this program that are firefighters, and, Captain was the president at the time, Ray Martinez, and,
I think there's something about when you see somebody that looks like you, that grew up in the neighborhood like you, and now they are successful in this place where you're like, well, I think I want to go there. And you're like, well, no, that actually shows me it's possible.
Oh, yeah.
Like, there's a dude who did this. He came right from the same place I came from. So it's possible. It's a real thing.
Exactly.
I think that's an important, that's really important for everybody.
Oh, yeah. It was huge for me.
Yeah.
So I ran into I was at the mall one day, and I saw one of the guys that I recognized that was at one of the meetings, and started talking to him. He said, yeah, come down and see me at the station. So I went to Station 5, I think, one day, and talked to him, and kind of asked me about myself and where I was from, and kind of gave him my story. And he said, you know what? He goes, I'm going to send you to see somebody. I think you'll relate to this person. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be good for you. So sent me to 44 to go see Jorge. First time I ever met him. And, I think he was the engineer at the time over there. And we just hit it off, you know what I mean? Because Jorge kind of grew up like me once we started, because he sat me down and sized me up, and, you know what I mean? Where are you from, man? And, we started talking, and it's funny because, like I said, Jorge grew up like me. I was a West Sider. Jorge was a South Sider. And it's funny because the neighborhood that he grew up in and the neighborhood that I grew up in, it was
some contention.
Oh, yeah. from way back in, for years and years, when the two neighborhoods, and I went to Carl Hayden, those guys from the South Side, we all went there. So long history of neighborhoods that didn't get along, and it was like, oh, you're from there, and it was like guys would fight, you know what I mean, and or worse, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so, but he was cool, we just kind of got my story, and and invited me back, and I started working with him, and he started mentoring me, and we're best of friends today, and so it was there, and then I also got sent to 24, and at the time, Danny and Sammy and everybody was, Danny was skipping, and Sammy Chavita was in the back, and Teddy Jam was driving, and
Did Sammy take a special interest in you and your shared occupations?
Well, we did, because Sammy used to work for the city before he got on.
Didn't he work sanitation?
Yeah.
I seem to remember that.
I don't know why I remember that.
Oh, okay. I had him pegged as a sanitation guy.
Yeah. So I worked down the street from 24. I guess it was called Glen Rosa Yard. So when I got off of my route driving the garbage truck, I would go straight to the station. So I'm showing up in a city uniform, you know what I mean, and riding and spending time. And again, I showed up to that station, and the majority of the station, just especially Engine 24 at the time, they were like me. They looked like me. They talked like me. They were from my neighborhoods, you know what I mean? And I just felt at home with these guys. And I think they took a liking to me, and, kind of took me under their wing too. So I got tied in with Jorge down at Station 44, which is in heart of Maryville. You know what I mean? I got tied in with Station 24, which is a station right where I grew up, right in the middle of my neighborhood.
Now you can see it.
Yeah. Now I realized it was there. Oh, this is what it looks like, And then I
always wondered what this building was.
And then I was working garbage, right? I was driving a garbage truck, and I had a friend in garbage, and he found out that I was testing for the fire department. He goes, "Hey, I got a good buddy that works for the fire department. I'll send you to go see him." and he sent me to go see Rich Gal.
Mm.
So I went to 18 to go see Rich. And it's funny, too, because Rich is from my neighborhood. You know, he's older than me. Obviously, he's retired now and stuff. But we hit it off because he's like, oh, you're from the neighborhood. And so we clicked. And so those were my people, you know.
Yeah.
44 with Jorge, 24 with Danny and Sammy, and then Richard, you know. And they took me. And all those guys were tied in with the Bomberos. The leadership of the organization for the Bomberos was Danny was the president at the time. Sammy was on the executive board, you know. So then I really got tied into the Bomberos and started, you know, understanding what the mentorship program was about. So not only with those guys and then volunteering and getting into that, you know, they kind of set me straight.
So as a candidate, right, what were some of the things that you were doing with the Bomberos?
Everything, you know. And it was tough because I was married, you know. I got hired when I was 30, so started testing when I was 25. Married, had kids, had a mortgage, working full time for the city, and then to learn everything that it takes to get onto the job is almost like having another full time job. So writing and testing and volunteering, and you know, and the Bomberos have always been active in the community, so there was always something going on. Yeah. Water walks, smoke detector walks, you know, and I was doing everything that I could as best as I could to be at everything and, you know, and be involved and get that exposure, you know what I mean, and meet firefighters and be out in the community and volunteer and ride at the stations. You know, that's that old toolbox they talk about, right?
Right.
So you start dumping all this stuff into your toolbox. So when it came down to sit down and interview, start pulling out and talking about it. But that was my struggle. I didn't know how to talk about myself. I didn't know how to interview. You know what I mean? It was hard. I tested for 5 years because I didn't know how to talk. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody wants to talk about themselves, right? That's a very hard thing to do. And you go into this interview and they're like, all right, what have you done to prepare?
Yeah.
Right? You're like, what do you mean? What would you like me to tell you about, right? And being able to talk about what you bring to the table is a really difficult thing to do.
Oh, yeah.
So the Bomberos was what specifically did you do to work on that, though? Because that's a skill that you build.
So it's funny, man, because when I would go to 44 with Jorge, part of his deal and how he mentored and, you know, me was every time I went to the station, I knew I had to answer an interview question. One. And they'd sit me down at the table and they'd, like a board, you know, say, all right, what have you done to prepare? Or why do you want to be a Phoenix firefighter, you know? And so I used to sweat going over there.
Yeah.
Because Jorge was no bullshit, you know.
No,
it was like.
Still isn't.
No. He would sit there, and I knew it would stress me out because I'd be at home working on my stuff, you know, getting ready. Because I knew when I went to the station, I had to answer an interview question before I left.
Yeah.
We'd ride, and, you know, I'd help out with the booters and do all that kind of stuff. But at some point before I left, I had to sit down and answer a question. And there was a lot of times, man, where, you know, I'd be rattling off stuff, and Jorge would say, hold up, wait. That sounds like shit, man, you know. What have you been doing?
Yeah, you know, did you even think about this before you came here?
He would check me at the door.
Waste my time.
Go home, man. You know, go work on that. That's not what we talked about.
So
you know,
funny.
And humble me, like break me down. But I needed that. Really, looking back, I needed that because I think I learned well that way. He would check me at the door if I was coming with some nonsense and be like, nah, we're not doing that. You know, go home. And the other part of that too was Richard. And so Richard lived on the west side, and Richard actually invited me to his house because he was mentoring a couple other guys too. So Richard, you know Richard could
Did he make you hit mitts before you start talking?
No. But sometimes we would work out.
Sure.
You know, we'd work out, and then we'd do some interview stuff. And you know, Richard could talk.
Yeah.
And Richard's deal, Richard was different from Jorge because he would tell me. He would ask me, we'd sit here and have a conversation like this. Tell me about yourself and where you came from, and what you do with the city and all that stuff. And then he'd say, okay, here's a question. Like, what have you done to prepare? And he would answer the question for me.
With your stuff?
Yeah, like me. And I'd sit there and be like, damn, why can't I say that? You know? That's what he'd tell me. That's what you need to say. Yeah. That's how you need to sound. That's how you plug your stuff into the fire department and what you're bringing to the table, like you said.
Right.
And so I learned a lot from Richard, man, because he would break me down too in a different way, So between the two, they finally got me dialed into where I could sit in front of a board and sound decent.
At least represent yourself.
Yeah, it was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah.
The whole process, was hard, but I always scored well on the written. I always passed my physical stuff, but it was sitting at the table in front of strangers, talking about who you are, where you're from, what you've done, and how it relates to what you're bringing to the Phoenix Fire Department and what they're looking for,
Yeah.
So they died over the years. It took 5 years.
Yeah. I've heard story of guys, taking 8 to 10 years and finally getting on the job or finally giving up or whatever. But it's so important. We talk about, I'll go back to something I said earlier, which was people have this belief that you have to know somebody.
Right.
And it's not, I think they think that for the wrong reasons. They think you got to have an inside guy to pull you in, pull to the organization. But it's not that. It's having a relationship with someone who can pull the stuff out of you to help you be more successful in the process, right? Help you understand the nuances of how you navigate the system, right? What are the things that you say in an interview that make sense and will help you through the process, will help you represent yourself to the organization in a way that's meaningful,
right? As
opposed to just going in there and wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, and it's tough, what I mean? And it takes somebody like that to bring, we're looking, and we do it today even now. Like, I'm looking for the real you. What are you bringing to the table? When I sit with new guys and talk with them and, our guys that are in our mentorship, and I want to hear that. I remember how they brought it out of me, but I want to hear that out of them. Your realness, we're, like you said earlier, we got a good bullshit meter. Don't sit there and BS me. Like, I want to hear about you and what you're bringing to the table and how you are going to make this department and this organization better and relate with us, because I'm living with you for the next, 25 years, 30 years, that kind of deal. So those guys were able to bring that out in me, and it's important, man, because, I think it's important for looking back on a guy like me. I mean, I was 30 when I got here. I wasn't a kid, but I relate it now to some of these young guys that are coming on, especially when I see kids that, again, come from where I come from and maybe had that same mentality or still have that mentality that they never thought they can do this. Yeah. You don't know what you can do in life until you actually have. That's why mentorship is so important. I believe in it, really. Yeah. Until you have somebody that can bring that out in you and sit there and look at you and explain to you, like, you can do this job. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you're from or, struggles and stuff that you had in your past. How are you doing? What have you done to make you successful up to this point within your own life or within your own family? And how are you going to bring that to our family? You know what I mean? Yeah. And you can go and do things that you never thought that you could do. That's how I am. Yeah. I never thought I'd be on a fire truck when I was younger, fighting fire, driving a fire truck, a captain now, you know what I mean? Hanging off the side of the building, TRT, in a full Class A hazmat suit, you know what I mean? Things that I've done in this career, and I look back to those people that mentored me and took me under their wing and showed me that. They changed my life, man. They did.
What's that? That brings something up for you.
It does, man, because they took me somewhere that, again, like, I never thought I'd be doing this stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? And within that whole mix, you know what I mean? I always took care of my family. I always loved my family and wanted to provide for them. But, man, this job has changed my life. You know what I mean? And again, allowed me to do things and see things and go places that I never, growing up in my neighborhood, thought that I would do. So I've always been involved with the Bomberos. I've always been involved with this organization because first of all, I told them that I was going to get back and want to be a man of my word, but actually I believe in what we do. I believe in mentoring this next generation, and bringing these kids up and giving them those same opportunities that I had. Yeah. It's been 17 years. I got 17 years on the job now and, 25 going on 26 years with the city. it's been a good ride.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I can't help but think, you go right back to Mr. Pete. And what he took a moment, whatever, a very small amount of his time to say, hey, man, the work that you're doing, that's good work. And that made a difference, right? Just stopping to point out to somebody, hey, this is you're doing the right stuff right here. And because of that, I'm going to kick this door open and push you through it. And that, I think it's important as leaders, whatever level in an organization that you're at, if you are, we all have the capacity to lead from wherever we are. And particularly when you have a position of authority and you have to be a leader, it's important to look at the people that you're surrounded by and encourage them by pointing out when they're doing the right thing and rewarding that behavior with a little bit of attention, with a green sheet, with opportunities, and say, hey, I have a good friend who said, what the reward for good work is? More work, right?
Yeah.
And but the beauty of that is like when someone says, hey, man, you're doing good stuff. Hey, can you take that same capacity and apply it over here? Well, yeah, yes, I can. And that's an opportunity, right? We always joke about, it's more work, but really it's another door. It's another opportunity. And that's huge. And, you talk about all these different paths that you've been down that were escalating up, and which is amazing. And then, all the way up to being, TRT, Hazardous Materials, like that's the pen, you get to do it all.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm going to take it home. Ultimately, the beauty of this is, and I go back to what your folks in your community were saying, which is, man, you get a city job. Well, part of that is you get to have a city job, which has a pension and cool benefits. It's stable, right? I get that. But it's also serving us, right? The community that we live in.
Right.
And I've always felt like, there is no higher honor than what we get to do to take the trust that is imbued upon us by the community and then go out and serve in our community.
Oh, yeah.
It's the best.
It's the best.
And
to do it, as a firefighter, now as a captain on the job, this is my career and I love it. Just what you're talking about. The other side of that is the organization, it's just embedded in us as firefighters to go out in our community, right? 24/7, we're those firefighters 24/7. And part of our culture is to give back to our communities on and off duty. And so the organization, the Bomberos, is always giving me that opportunity to do more, and it's something that I'm passionate about. I like it.
Yeah. What are some things that the Bomberos are doing these days? What are you guys up to?
So we do a lot.
What's your role in the Bomberos right now?
I'm the vice president.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
sorry, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President,
Mr. Vice President. Yeah. No, I've always been involved, but I think not too long after I got on, I was offered a spot in community involvement. I was the community involvement director for pretty much my whole career up until about a year ago. I took up the role of the vice president spot. And it fit, because I liked setting up things. I liked doing things out in the community, so I always had that opportunity to do it as the community involvement director. But, for those out there in this world that don't know what this organization is, can we talk about that?
Yeah. What exactly
is?
So
Los Bomberos, the Valley Hispanic Bomberos, it's a nonprofit organization that was started back in 1986, from firefighters on the job that were asked to go out and help in the community, the downtown area. There was like a rash of fires that were going on that they thought was an arson. And so, the downtown area was a lot of minorities, Spanish speakers. So the firefighters went out to the neighborhood and hit the streets. And what they really found was there was a lack of education. There was people using bad wires and, candles. And so they decided to keep hitting the neighborhoods and educating. And so that's kind of where the organization started. And then from that grew the mentorship program. Why don't we help our people? Why don't we help, this next generation of firefighters, show them that way? So the mentorship was brought into it. So that as an organization, Los Bomberos, our bread and butter is mentorship and community involvement. That's what we're really about, And so we've been going strong. I was a product of the mentorship program, right? Mm-hmm. They took me in, they showed me everything that I needed to do to be successful in this process. And at the same time was out there in the streets and the neighborhoods, volunteering and doing all the water safety walks and all that kind of stuff, which was good for our neighborhoods because, again, we focused on the neighborhoods that most of us grew up in and came from, in Maryville and South Phoenix and Central and the East Side, and so that resonated with me too. We're giving back to the communities that we come from. So again, I always said I was going to give back, and I've tried to live that and live up to that promise that I made. Because of that reason, this organization helped me get to where I'm at today. And so now as a vice president, we're still active. We do a lot out in the community. We have a pickleball tournament that we created. That money goes directly to our scholarship program. We give scholarships to kids from like Franklin High School, which is downtown Phoenix. Central Phoenix, and all those kids come from the neighborhood from around there, right? We give scholarships to some of those kids. We just did that car show that we did. We raised all that money. We're giving it to the Tolleson Elementary School District to their autism program. We still do all of the smoke detector walks and water safety walks, and we have relationships that we've built through the years with the community centers and organizations in the neighborhoods where we go help them with their health fairs and their toy drives and, Thanksgiving and Christmas and, so any opportunity that we can to get back out in the community and give back. And as a nonprofit, it's good because we're a little different because we're kind of a grassroots, small nonprofit. We got a strong organization that's been around since '86, but our executive board, nobody gets paid.
Right.
There's 100% of our money that we have for this organization goes back out into the community in one shape or form.
That's awesome.
And so now we're working full time as firefighters. We're family men. We're working overtime. We're doing whatever we need in our own lives, but we also give back to this organization and keep it going and running. And it's on our own time. A lot of time it's on our own dime, to put together and take the time to do what we need to do.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, man, that the impact that you guys have, I can't measure the impact you've had in the community. But what I will tell you is I know hundreds of firefighters who have come through, have been touched by the Bombero organization in one way, shape, or form. And that has shaped their opportunity in this organization and influenced their ability to get on the job and change lives. Because, well, let's just say it like it is. Becoming a firefighter is a life-changing event. And for somebody out of the community who didn't know that was a thing, and they see a guy and they go, "Hey, that guy looks like me. That looks like my uncle, or whatever. That could be me." And then suddenly they go, "Wait a minute, I didn't know that this was an opportunity."
Right.
And then getting connected and being able to get mentored and told like, "Hey, bro, you can do this, and here's what this looks like. Here's the path," and you illuminate the path. And you go right this way, bro, and start and you give them kind of the hard truth about how to do this. It's pretty cool, man. It's a really amazing legacy.
I always tell this story, and it was like at Franklin, I was asked to speak one of the scholarships that we gave, and I like to tell this story. I had a captain that I worked for, an old captain down at 22, the ladder captain, and there's an old, and I'm sure it's still around. Actually, I just saw it the other day at one of the stations. It's an old plaque. Remember, it was a diversity picture that the department put on, and it had pictures of it was a Hispanic firefighter, a Hispanic woman, an African American woman, an Asian man. It was all, and it was a diversity promotion that the department had put on together.
Yeah.
And so the captain, Ted, remember Ted?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he's the one that told me that story. They asked him to be on that poster. And at first he goes, "Nah, I don't want," because he's an old school guy, right? "I don't want to be take no picture and this and that." And he said that, you know what? He changed his mind and he decided to do it. And the reason that he did it, because he grew up in South Phoenix and he remembers being young, and he always kind of had that feeling like he wanted to be a firefighter because he would see them come into the neighborhood, see them at the stores. And he said that never thought he could do it because when those guys jumped off of that truck, nobody on that truck looked like him. So he grew up thinking there was no chance that he would be able to be a firefighter. And it wasn't until he had a mentor come into his life and pull him aside and said, "Yeah, you can do this job.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you come from the South Side or, your neighborhood or what you look like. If you work hard, you put in the work, you can achieve this job. And so he said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And he's on that poster, and he decided to do it so that he could show people that diversity is important. You know, and we preach diversity in this organization. It's important. Yeah. It's important to us.
Absolutely.
You know, and I believe in that strongly. And that was what was important to him. He decided to do it because he wanted to be a part of that and show people, because somebody did that for him. And I want people to see that, you can look at this poster. Doesn't matter what you look like. You can do this job.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So I always like to tell that story. And it resonates with me. It resonates with our organization, you know, especially when we go back into these communities that we come from and we talk to these kids that in the inner city, and you know, and they sit there and they look at us, and you give them that message. You may touch one of those kids and plant that seed, right?
Yeah.
And then they do the work and they get involved, and we tell them about the Bomberos, and this is what we kind of pull them in and say, this is our mentorship program. You want to do it? This is everything you need to do. There's steps. Yeah. There's that pathway that you talked about, right? But sometimes you got to pull these kids, because they were like me. They don't think that they can do it. They have no clue what to do. They think their path is, you know, something different, something something
be a social media influencer.
Yeah, I'm gonna start a T-shirt company. You know what I mean? Like that. You know.
No, I'm gonna have a TikTok account.
No, you can't. You need to work. You need to be. You know.
Come on, bro. TikTok's work.
Yeah. But
you're not buying that.
It is for some people, but for the majority of us, you know what I mean, we're not going to make it that way, right? We got to put our boots on, and we need to get to work, you know, get dirty, and you know, so you know those.
Well, let me ask you this: how has your perspective evolved now that you're a captain? What's changed for you now that you're a made man?
That's a good question. It's been a journey, you know. I spent 12 years as a firefighter in the back of Engine 39, you know.
I can't think of a better place.
Yeah, and, you know, and it was, you know, right in the middle of South Phoenix, and you know, you were there. You know, we got our butts kicked, man. Yeah. And there was a time where I thought, man, I'm just gonna be a firefighter. That's all I want to do. I love it. I love being on the knob. I love fighting fire. You know, I don't know responsibility other than to pull that line and get in there and get it on. You know, I had my I still have my CDL today. So I knew in the back of my mind at one point I was going to drive, you know. My thinking at the time was, when I get a little older on the job, I'll probably be an engineer.
Break down. So I broke down a little bit.
So I know how to wheel this thing, you know. So I knew that was in my path. So then I was fortunate, man. I look back on my career and you know, I spent all that time. I ended up back with Jorge, my mentor. You know what I mean? Was fortunate enough to get on his truck, and we worked together for years. And we had a good, solid crew there, man. I look back on all those years, and there was, within those years, there was probably only 5 of us, you know, maybe 6 that changed hands. You know, we were always together. And that little house over there on the south side was just one engine, 4 of us, you know. So it was fun. Even though we were getting our butts kicked, we had a blast. We had fun. It was, you know. And I learned a lot because he continued to mentor me. He continued to show me what it was to be a leader on this job and take care of your people. That's the biggest thing, is take care of the people that are with you, you know what I mean, in this organization, you know. So as a captain now, I take everything that I learned from him and from the people that I worked with, and just that camaraderie, that family, really is a family, you know. And now I use it. Right. And now that I have my own spot, I'm on Engine 34 now. And, you know, I want to see my guys, you know, be successful, whether they decide to promote or whether they just are good at their job, and we go out and we take care of the customer and we represent as our crew. We represent this organization, you know, treat people right, do a good job. You know what I mean? And so now I know it's my responsibility to do that, right?
Yeah.
And I got some young guys at my station. I got some, you know, on the rescue and, you know, on my truck, and I try to instill in them that philosophy that was taught to me. And, hey, man, we're going to come to work. We're going to have a good time. You know, we're going to work out. We're going to watch a movie. You know what I mean? And we're going to go out and we're going to treat people right. When it's time to get it on, when it's time to get out there, we're going to do a good job. And we're going to represent. You know, and that's important.
Yeah.
Take some pride in what we do, you know?
Yeah. Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
Other than the 4 or 5 calls after midnight? No, I mean, you know, that in your role as a captain, you know, you got in the back of your head, like, I'm responsible for these people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm responsible. And again, I just have to look back on the way I was taught. Like, that responsibility is deep. Not only am I responsible for these men that are on my truck, they have families, you know, and they have kids, you know. So doing the right thing, you know, being good at our job, making sure that we train is going to ultimately affect, you know, how we operate in the field and on the fire ground and being safe. Because the last thing, and I remember my mentors telling me that, I don't want to have to sit down and explain to your wife or your kids what went wrong or what happened.
Right.
Why I'm standing here and your husband's not, you know.
Yeah.
That always resonated with me. And so I take that to heart too. I don't want to be in that position. I don't want to lose anybody, because honestly, if something bad goes down, I'm going to go down with you. You know, I'm going to stay in there. I'm going to do everything I can. And if it means that we both don't come out, it's just something that I understand that's my responsibility. Is
Did you out or die trying?
Yeah. I don't want to have that conversation, you know.
Yeah.
But on the front end, we're going to do everything so we're not in that situation, right? So
Right.
We play safe. We train hard. We play safe. We operate safe. We do the right thing. So, you know, we've always said, I've heard this since I got on the job, the goal is to go home at the end of the shift.
Right.
You know, so you can go home and spend time with your family. Spend 25, 30 years on this job and enjoy your retirement, you know. So I just operate that way.
Yeah.
That's what I was taught.
Yeah.
You know, you got good people and they teach you the right way. You just continue on this legacy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a way of giving back and honoring those people that put so much time and effort into you. You know, you don't change. You know, you don't flip the script just because you got a position or, you know, I still operate the same way that I operated at 39. You know, it's a little bit different now that I'm in a leadership role, but I just look at how my leadership, the leaders in my life operated and took care of me, and I just do the same thing. You know, try to teach these guys. So hopefully one day when I leave and those guys are in that position, they do the same thing. Because my boy's on the job now. You know, I want him to be with somebody that's going to pull him under his wing and show him and teach him the same things. You know, everything that I try to do for him. But, you know, as a dad, sometimes kids listen to you, right? You could say one thing, but let the other person tell them the same thing, and they, oh, right. Yeah.
You know what Rain said, and you're like, what?
I just got done telling you the same thing, you know? But you get, yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So there's somebody out there right now who's going to want to find their way to the Bomberos. So how do they do that? What is their website, phone number, email?
Yeah. So we're online. www.
Is there a TikTok account?
Not a TikTok. Not a TikTok.
Okay, sorry. I couldn't know myself.
Yeah, we haven't got there yet.
Okay, it's a web address.
Maybe
You're
one
going
of
to
these
say
young guys might start that, but not yet. But yeah, there's a website is www.vhbomberos.org. That's our what do you call it?
Web address, website.
Address. Yeah, that's our website. Can't even think of that.
We're so old.
We're on social media, Facebook and Instagram at VH Bomberos. You can find us.
I'll link all this stuff, by the way, in the show notes.
Yeah,
in the show notes. I'm high speed like that.
Yeah, so you can find us, and you know, we try to, especially with our Instagram and stuff, we try to update and show people what we do, and you know, and you can email us at VH. What is our email address? VH. I have to look at it, man. I'm sorry. I should have came.
Send it to me later. I'll put it in there.
Yeah, but we have an email address. So with our social media and our email address, anybody can reach out. You know what I mean? To see what we do. We do workouts the first and third Mondays of the month at Franklin. We've got a good relationship and a partnership that we developed with Phoenician High School District. You know, we had to go through a whole process to get that relationship. I mean, it's solidified, stamped, approval, insured. You know what I mean? So that we got a partnership with them, created an MOU with them to use that facility, and they're great. You know, I mean, and it's right there in the middle of the city, kind of our hub where we do our workouts, and we use those workouts for not only our workouts but some of our meetings. Yeah, you know, and so anybody can get involved if you're interested in joining them. And I get this all the time. People will either reach out or call and say, "Hey, I have a son or a daughter," or just somebody that says, "I'm thinking about becoming a firefighter. What do I need to do?" Yeah. And the best advice I can give them is you got to get involved with the mentorship program. And the affinity groups, there's more. They're just like the Bomberos on all these organizations, these affinity groups out here in the Valley. That's what our goal is, to bring up the next generation of firefighters and mentor them. And we want good people on this job. Amen. Don't matter where you come from, don't matter what you look like. If you're willing to come in and put the work and do everything that you need to do to be successful, we're going to give you that path and shine that light on and tell you this is what you need to do. And if you follow through, you can have this job. You can do this job and have a good, successful career and do things that you never thought you could do.
So I'm going to ask you a few rapid fire questions. And I was going to ask you, what would you say to 18-year-old Gmo? But I think you just said it. But let me ask you anyways. What would you tell that kid?
I'd probably smack him first. You know what I mean? In the back of the head and say, "Man, be a man. Like, let's get to work. There's things that you can do. You don't know your potential, until you put the work in. So, are you ready to do some work? Let me show you."
So, what's the worst piece of advice you've ever heard given?
Play the game. Just play the game. Just do the, just get through that. Just do the bare minimum, and after that, you're good. Like, all you have to do is this, you know what I mean? And then you're on the job, and you can just slide, and that just play. I hate that word. I hate that phrase, man. Just play the game. This ain't a game to us. This is our livelihood, right? This is our profession. This is something that we expect everybody to take pride in, whether you got 5 years on the job, 15 or 20. There's no playing the game. That work ethic should only get stronger as you go through this career. And, part of that is working hard and being that example and, teaching others. There's no sliding in here and just kind of kicking back and, So I'm going to flip a script on you. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? The best piece of advice. Man, I don't know. It's a hard question. That's a tough one, man. Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of good advice over the years, from my mentors and people on this job. And best piece of advice is just, do what you said you were going to do. It's kind of that, nobody ever, I heard it after I got on the job and stuff like that, live your interview, but, do what you said you were going to do. I think there's honor in that, being a man and, and having respect for yourself and respect for others is, don't BS. If you said you were going to come on this job and you said you were going to do this and you were going to take pride in yourself and take pride in this job and you were going to take care of people and you were going to be professional and, treat people, all that kind of stuff. Do what you said you were going to do, right? You sat in front of a group of people to get here and you were going to do all this. It shouldn't change just because you're off of probation, just because you got 5-10 years on the job, do what you said you were going to do in your interview. Yeah. I love it. So the title of this podcast is the Fireground Fitness Podcast. So what does it mean to you to be Fireground Fit? Fireground Fit. That comes up a lot, especially in our mentorship program. When we explain to people, be Fireground Fit, and that's, to me, is, obviously the fitness aspect of it, but I think it's just being that well-rounded person, that total wellness that we teach our people, right? And I had never heard that before I got on the job, total wellness. But it's important, right? Have your stuff lined up mentally, physically. Have people behind you that you can lean on, whether it's your mentors or your family. Because this is, I don't have to tell you, this is a tough job. You're going to see things that the average person doesn't see, but you're also going to do things that the average person doesn't get a chance to do, So Fireground Fit to me is take care of yourself mentally, right? Do the right things, have that support system. Take care of yourself physically. Work out, try to eat right. It's hard sometimes, but and then as you get older, you got to adapt, you got to change, you know what I mean? Your workouts, your everything that you do. But that total wellness aspect of it is important because, again, the goal is to have a successful career. When you take care of yourself, I tell people all this time, when you take care of yourself, we're hiring you to be on this truck every third day. We need you. We need you to be out there not only for the citizens, but for each other, on this truck. I want you to be there with me when it's time to go, when the lights come on and it's, So take care of yourself so that you can look back on your career and say, man, I did my part. And I gave it everything that I had. And I worked and I earned my retirement. I earned an opportunity to look back and I had a good, successful, long career. I had fun. I built relationships. I earned a new family, did things that I never thought I would do in my life. You know what I mean? When you walk away, I think that's important when you retire is to look back and be able to tell yourself that and take pride in that,
No, that's awesome. Gmo, my brother, thank you for spending some time with me, man, and having this conversation.
Man, I listen to your podcast. I hope Rain calls me one day. I want to talk to him, man. I want to sit down. So when we talked, man, we hit it up. I was like, I've really been looking forward to sitting down, man, because I appreciate what you do, and so people can hear from us, right, what this job is about, what we do, and what we believe in. It's important, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, brother.
Right on, man.
Hey, folks, that's all we have today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Greg, for sharing some of your time and your talents with us. And if you are enjoying this podcast, get on over to Apple Podcasts, rate and review the podcast. Also, get over to whatever platform you enjoy and subscribe to the podcast. And this will download in the middle of the night when you least expect it. And more importantly, take the lessons that you've learned here today. Find a way to bring them into your life, apply those lessons, and go on out there, kick some butt, take some names, and get some.